So the theme here is losing it. And I'll get us started. I'll tell you a little story of mine about losing it. So the year was 1992. And I, like a lot of people, discovered myself in college, and I discovered I was a party animal. I was really, I was a good student, got good grades in high school, and got me into college. But I also discovered that I was peaking in college, unlike my friends who peaked in high school. But yeah, so I had a lot of fun in college, and 3 years in, I started to think, man, I better get my shit together. And I got lucky, and I ended up working for a professor, and I ended up being a research assistant. And that gig, working for that professor, led to an internship, and it was with Apple out here in California. So I went to college in University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and so economy wasn't that great. So a lot of my friends didn't even have jobs, so they were all kind of surprised that I did. And so I had this job. I talked to them, and I met the woman that was going to be my boss. Her name was Shift Day, and she wouldn't tell me much about the job. She was just like, you just get out here, you're going to be working on this small device, it's going to change the world, it's going to be neat, that's all you need to know. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I get out there, and it turns out that small device that was going to change the world that I was going to work on, anybody guess? Anybody? No, the Newton, aha, yeah, so anybody old enough to remember that? Probably not. But the Newton was this device Apple was making at the time that was handheld. They were calling it a personal digital assistant. You would use it to keep track of names and notes and things like that. And it recognized your handwriting, and it was going to change the world, But probably another 15 years before they got it right. So I worked on the Newton, and my job was interesting because it wasn't a job I knew existed. And one of my biggest roles was I was conducting what they call usability testing on the Newton. And my main job was to get 1,000 samples of like handwriting and usage from people and stuff like that over the summer. And the big challenge was that Newton didn't exist yet. It was still being built. And so it was very interesting, and a neat thing to work on, because at the time it was a pretty big deal in Silicon Valley. So I was working on this thing, and I had to work very closely with my boss's assistant, Geraldine. And Geraldine didn't like me from the get-go, and I'm not sure why. But we butted heads quite a bit, and I just had we were just having a hard time getting along. And it was a lot of it because she wanted to do things a certain way, and I had a way I wanted to do it, and stuff like that. And so one day I get, a meeting with my boss, Shift Day, and it's like, hey, Brian, if this isn't gonna work out, we can probably, find a place for you or do something. And I just sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna get fired from an internship. And of course I'm thinking, oh, it's that Geraldine bitch, she's doing this to me, whatever. So the smartest move I had made, it was a pretty smart move for a young guy, it was like, I guess it doesn't matter what I think, it's what she thinks. So I just decided the best route was to kiss Geraldine's ass, and it worked. We were getting along great. So fast forward a couple weeks, I've been working on this job, and the engineers say, we need some handwriting samples from other parts of the world. We need somebody to go out and get some authentic European handwriting, which I know sounds ridiculous. And so I had developed a test for this Newton for handwriting, where I tried to simulate like a realistic situation where why would somebody be using this thing in writing with a pen and all that stuff. So I built this test, and it was like a bell curve of a bunch of words and stuff like that. And I had the same script every single time I would talk to somebody, be like, hi, this is the Newton, it's going to be a personal digital assistant, and when you use it, it'll do these things, and what we need is some real handwriting recognition. And I would do that all the time, and I would do these tests in a cube, and the guy next to me that sat next to that cube had to hear it like every test. So when it came time to go to Europe, Geraldine's like, Brian, you need to show me how to use your test, because I'm going to Europe and I'm going to do these studies for you. I'm like, all right. So I sit down with her, and I like 5 minutes into it, she's like, get your passport, you're going to Europe. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, never been. I'm like 22. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna get to go to Europe. And we're gonna go to UK, and we're gonna go to Paris. And that was pretty exciting to me because I one of my best friends from college was living in London at the time, and he was working for CNN. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to get to see my buddy Tim, and if there's time. So I go, and Geraldine and Shifty, my boss, the three of us are flying, and we get to fly business class. Yeah, British Air, deluxe. And you get to go to the lounge if you have business class tickets. And so while we're waiting for our flight, I'm in there like a 22-year-old in business class would. I'm taking beers and I'm putting it in my pocket. And Geraldine reminds me, she's like, you know, they'll have that on the plane too. I'm like, oh, okay. And so 11-hour flight from San Francisco to London, and I didn't sleep a wink. I just took advantage of everything I had coming to me. Like a total hick. So yeah, I've made a hell of an impression on my boss, and Geraldine is, going on this business trip. And there was one thing, I found this beer, McEwen's Ale, it's a Scottish beer, and I was really liking it. And so as we were about an hour from landing, I'd asked the flight attendant for another McEwen's, and she said, "You drank it all, sir," and wouldn't let me have another. So I get there, and we're staying out in Windsor, so where the castle is. And so you think Windsor to London is kind of like, hey, we're going to San Francisco, and we're staying in Tracy. And I was like, oh, so we're way out there, and I'm connecting with my friend Tim, and I tell Shifty, and at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm gonna go meet my friend Tim after work, and they're like, oh, that's great, that's so nice you have friends here. In London, I didn't really tell them the details, and it was like 2 or 3 trains. I get there, and another thing in London, of course, the trains stop running at like 11 o'clock at night, and I barely got on the last train to Windsor that night and came back, and the next day, the jet lag, I'm just shot, right? We've got work to do, and my job is, while I'm there, the only reason I'm there is to collect data. And collecting data for this was like getting people to write, use their hands, and videoing everything that they said. And I'm, can barely stay awake and everything. So now I'm really worried, that I'm here on this trip. I'm not being very responsible, and it's starting to dawn on me that I need to have my shit together. So we go through UK, and we get our data, and we get our samples, and then it's on to Paris. And Shifty and Geraldine had to go back to the States. So I'm going to Paris by myself, and they leave me with all this gear. And one of the things that was in this pile of boxes on a cart was a unique prototype that they made of the Newton. And at the time, it was just 2 pieces of plexiglass, like sandwiched together in a circuit board, like 8D batteries and a screen. So it looked like a bomb, a time bomb out of like a 70s detective show. So that was the thing I had. And then I had all these I had a bunch of computers. We had like backups of everything. So I had like a stack of stuff, and I probably had good $60,000 to $80,000 worth of gear with me to take on this trip, because I was the only one now on the trip. And I go to Paris, and I do a good job, and I get everything done, and I get like 100 people, and we get all our data, and I'm, getting my shit together, and so I'm all excited. Now, I'm going home, and I'm gonna go back through London, and I'm gonna see my friend Tim again. So I quietly add a day to my trip, and I'm gonna stay one more day in England on my way home. And so I'm going home. First, I'm going to the airport in Paris, and I get a cab from the hotel, and it's really nice taxi cabs in Paris. It's like a Mercedes, really nice car. Even, this is 1992, the guy had a car phone. So I'm like, this guy's a baller. And we get to the airport, and I don't know if anybody's been to De Gaulle Airport. It's an interesting design. So I get there, and the cabbie helps me, takes all the stuff out. We put it on the cart, all there, moving it really fast. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Closes the hood, drives away. I look at the cart, and I just, oh, shit. Everything's there except the video camera and all the tapes and all the data. The whole reason I'm on the trip has just driven away, right? And De Gaulle Airport is like a corkscrew. So I'm like running with this cart, like trying to get to the upper level and see if I can catch this cab by foot. And no luck. And now I'm just like, oh, I'm dead. So I rush to the gate. When I get to the gate, I talk to the ticket agent. And oh, by the way, I don't speak French at all. And so luckily, British Air does, and mostly everybody in France as well. So they took pity on me. And I tell the gate agent what happened and all that stuff. So we call the hotel. And they're like, oh. I said, he had a car phone. They're like, yeah, so we'll call him. He's not answering. He's probably on his break. Sorry. I'm like, that's it? Just sorry? And now I'm just like, God, I'm so dead. I'm already worried that, like, I know, I'm already expecting I'm going to get back to California and it's just going to be like, we already tried to fire you once. Now we got a good reason. So I'm just bummed out. And so I'm sitting there, I'm waiting to hear something back. And so literally, I'm waiting till the very end. And just as I finally decide I'm gonna get on the plane, I hear, Mr. Maggi. And I'm like, I look, and there's a woman from BA running down, running through the airport with the camera bag and all the stuff. And they got a hold of the cabbie. And I got my stuff and I got on the plane and I'm like, thank you, Jesus. And so off I go, and I get to London, and I get to Heathrow, and I've got this huge cart of stuff, and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get to my buddy's place in Brixton with this huge cart of stuff. And again, this is 1992. These things don't happen like this anymore. But at Heathrow, they just have this cool, like, empty space with curtains that you just park your shit and leave it there, and they'll give you a ticket, and you just come back and get it whenever you want. Right? Kind of like if you've ever been to a hotel and you have to check out early, you leave your suitcase and then, and you get that ticket and you hope to God they match. So I'm like, well, this will work. And I put the stuff there, but I'm like, but I'll take the video camera and the prototype with me. So I go to my friend Tim's, another night, all-nighter and everything like that. And so I'm at Heathrow the next day, going home. I look like hell. I haven't really showered or anything, and I'm all grizzly looking, and I had like a scraggly beard and this leather jacket. And so now I'm going through security, and the line is huge. And it gets to me, and I'm carrying on my person the prototype. and so it goes through the X-ray machine, and it's like, they pull it out, they pull it out of the bag, and you can hear everybody just holy shit, they got him, that's why it's so busy here, and they're just like, what is this? And I'm like, it's a PDA, it's a personal digital assistant, it has recognition, it's coming blah, 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 and they were, and it wasn't FCC approved or anything like that, so I had to have all this paperwork. And that's all it took, and they're like, all right, off I went on the plane. I don't know how the rest of the airport felt, but I was like, damn, I'm getting out of here. So I get home, and I'd come to the office, I've got all my data, I'm all excited, and first thing I get is an email that Shifty wants to see me first thing in the morning, and I'm like, oh God, it's coming, the hammer's coming down. They've kind of figured out, somehow they knew, maybe that I put that where, how you are when you're a kid and you're paranoid. So I get in the office, I get into Shifty's office, and she closes the door, and she's like, I got some really bad news for you, Brian. But while we were in Europe, the engineering team has decided that we're going to go with a completely different code base from Paragraph. Guys from Russia. So they're not going to need all that data from your trip. So this is a story about a guy who would have lost his shit any other day, but that was the biggest relief I think I ever had. So yeah, so thank you very much.